Hi, my name is Dwayne Gathers, and welcome to Civitas LA, featuring diverse and emerging leaders who make up this dynamic region and are creating community every day and building a better tomorrow. These bi-weekly conversations enable us to hear from, learn from, and be inspired by a new generation of civic entrepreneurs who are forging a path forward in making our region a stronger, more resilient, and connected group of citizens. Our goal is to elevate civic discourse, foster community connections, and promote civic knowledge and engagement across the greater Los Angeles region while elevating diverse and emerging voices in that conversation. As Civitas LA launches its third year of podcasting with this particular episode, number 72, I just can't tell you how thrilled we are with this particular conversation that we're having here on the beautiful campus of Emerson College on this particular Monday afternoon. Building bridges between Los Angeles and the world, the International Visitors Council of Los Angeles plays a crucial role in creating international connections, cultivating local innovation, and activating global potential. And for more than 40 years, IVCLA has facilitated countless leadership exchange programs and cross-border programs in close coordination with the U.S. State Department in Washington, D.C., helping to advance U.S. global objectives. And many of the international visitors that have participated in IVCLA programs have gone on to become leaders in and of their respective regions. So I'm thrilled that when we had Janet Elliott, President and CEO of IVCLA on back in the early days of Civitas LA, episode 13 to be specific, we were celebrating their 40th anniversary. And I said to Janet, once we get past the pandemic and international programs can happen again in person, if there was ever a group that comes through LA that aligns with our mission about building community, promoting civic engagement, we would love to feature those international guests on Civitas LA. So lo and behold, here we are as we launch our third year. We are thrilled to have Janet Elliott, President and CEO of IVCLA, back with us on the podcast. But with Janet today, we have two outstanding international guests who are currently participating in the International Visitor Leadership Program's Summit for Democracy IVLP initiative, Mr. Christian Huebel, City Director, Department for Democracy and Strategy from the city of Mannheim, Germany, and the Honorable Josefina Joy Belmonte, Mayor of Quezon City, Philippines. Janet, Christian, Mayor Belmonte, welcome to Civitas LA.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us, Dwayne.
No, I'm so glad we're able to do this. So, Janet, thank you. So on Civitas LA, we always appreciate it if our guests will give us a short personal introduction to yourself and the work that you do. We'll start with the Honorable Mayor from Quezon City.
Well, my name is Maria. It's very long. Maria Josefina Belmonte Alimurong. And you can call me Joy for short. And I come from the Philippines, although I have loads of relatives here in Los Angeles.
Okay.
So this is not my first time here at all. And I now am the mayor of Quezon City, which is just north of Manila, part of metropolitan Manila, and it is the largest city in terms of population in the country.
Wow, excellent. Welcome, Christian.
Yes, hi Dwayne. For me, it's the first time in Los Angeles, so thank you for inviting me also here for this podcast. My name is Christian Huebel. I'm in the city of Mannheim for the city department, the head of the unit for democracy and strategy. And this means, bringing democracy into the town with participation, with transparency, and also involving the citizens in creating a new Mannheim 2030.
Excellent. Janet.
Yes, hi. Well, as you said, we are now in our 42nd year, the International Visitors Council of Los Angeles, and we are thrilled that once again we're able to have visitors in person, which was not the case the last time you and I spoke.
Right.
So, and we're particularly excited to have this group of visitors. The two that we have here in the studio today are a group of 8 that are part of the program you mentioned on the Summit for Democracy. So we're very honored that they can be here today. And these are the type of programs we do all around the year. And now that we're back in person, it's very special because that's what our program is about, is people-to-people connections.
Yeah. Well, we're thrilled that you all and certainly the State Department was able to program us into this visitors group. So we're really delighted and honored for that. But Janet, let's start with you first, because some people who may not have listened to episode 13. We hope they will go back to episode 13. Just give us a scene setter and talk about the work of International Visitors Council of Los Angeles.
Well, as you said, we are about building collaboration and coordination between all different countries in the Los Angeles region here. So well, the main program we do is the International Visitor Leadership Program, which is actually 82 years old this year. So we do a few others that we coordinate. The Open World Program, which we have not had an actual group since 2018, but in September we're going to be welcoming a group from Poland.
Oh, excellent.
Yes.
Wonderful.
And so we do all kinds of programs that all of them are about citizen diplomacy and connecting individuals and building better understanding.
Yeah. And speak to this specific program, the International Visitor Leadership Program. This is a signature program. Give us an overview of this particular program, and how do you think this program fits into what the U.S. government is trying to do regionally or globally?
Yes. Well, what's unique about the International Visitor Leadership participants of all the international programs and exchange programs the State Department does, this one is where the U.S. embassies, our U.S. embassies around the world, select the individuals to come. They do not apply. They are chosen because of the work they're doing in their countries and their cities. So it's a very prestigious opportunity, and they will now be alumni of the International Visitor Leadership Program, which, as you said, does have many go on to become leaders of their country.
Well, you know, we are just delighted to be just a small part of this International Visitor Leadership Program cohort visiting Los Angeles. We know there are 8 of them, but we're delighted to get, 2 distinguished members of that group with us this afternoon, and we really want to hear their perspectives on what we at Civitas LA focus on, which is about how are we going about building community, how are we going about fostering civic engagement in our own region, and we want to hear about how they're doing this from a global perspective. So why don't we start with our guests here, starting with the mayor. Share more about your particular background, and also I'd be interested to know more about the city that you lead as well.
Well, first, I'm really, really thrilled, Dwayne, to have been invited to this program. As Janet said, it's a by-invitation program, and I think I'm the only one from the Philippines who has been invited at this time. And I think it's because I have been with the Charge d'Affaires of the U.S. Embassy for many reasons, for many times in the past, pertaining to many programs that we have been doing together. Among them are programs that promote democracy and human rights and anti-corruption programs. We also are leading in all the other cities in the Philippines in terms of acceptance, diversity, equality, inclusivity. And I am known as a progressive leader amongst many of the young leaders in the city. And we have been at the forefront of many sometimes controversial, but most often very inclusive programs, including legislation that have brought people who have once been marginalized or discriminated against into the mainstream of community. And their voices have become part of those that are being heard. And at the moment, I'm very proud because we have recently launched a Quezon City People's Council, wherein all sectors are now represented in policy making and program development in our city. And we are only the second city in the country to have done this.
Wow, that's impressive. Kristen, share more about your background in government, but also give us an overview of the city that you serve, Mannheim, Germany.
Yeah, my background in government is perhaps not a typical administration background for Germany, because I studied political science and history, then worked a little bit for political parties, made elections, and so I got a little bit also the view from the people, how they are seeing government and administration. And I was hired by the mayor 2007 when he started, Mayor Peter Kurz, and he makes citizen participation one of his top projects, because he said, I want to develop the city of Mannheim sustainable and with my citizens together. And this means achieving more together, and therefore you need a change reform into the administration so that the city participation is capable and has traction in an administration, and is not only a participation where we have new papers. Yeah, what we're doing, we try to invite the people, not only, we try to get on the streets where the people are, and looking to develop the city together, not only via opinion polls, but creating through co-creation and design thinking processes the city, public spaces, etc. pp. And for here, it's a great experience, and I'm also thankful for the IVLP and the State Department, and especially Meridian, who is organizing a lot of this trip, because we have the opportunity to have a directly knowledge exchange. Here we were in Washington, in Kalamazoo, and now we're here in Los Angeles, discuss with the city leaders democracy, challenges of democracy, and bring all this knowledge back. And then in the alumni network, have new networks and also friendships.
Well, that's great. And again, I was just terribly fascinated by the fact that you head up a democracy and strategy department within the city government. So how long has that department been around? What is it charged to do? And how are results measured?
The department is around for about 3 years. So we combined participation processes, but also the work with the councillors and the developing of a long-time strategy, which is directly related to the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, and which was in a big process developed with the citizens. We have 1.5 year process for what is the vision Mannheim 2030, and now we are implementing it. So what we are doing, we are saying, okay, what are the big topics for us? It's climate change, it's social cohesion, it's also fighting poverty, and then we are also looking for goals and targets in the administration, so that we are not only speaking the word, we are doing it, we are measuring it, and we have also indicators that we first say, are we successful with achieving this vision statement, Mannheim 2030. On the other hand, we are also looking for the people who are in these participation processes at the end. Are they satisfied? No? Do they think it's a good result what we have? And at the end, at our top indicators, every year, we are asking the people, are you trusting in the participation processes, and are you trusting in the city council?
Yeah, wow. And is this just in Mannheim, or is this in cities across Germany? Or is this taking place in cities across Europe? How prevalent is this kind of department?
It's the department is very special, because usually you're doing it in normal units which are not so directly related to other units in the city administration, which has which is supporting a silo thinking in an administration. And we try to put it together to say that it's strategy, and now we are participating with the people and creating new goals and new measures. For instance, during COVID, we're making online participation processes, and we see that the people are suffering, that during the lockdown, that some people have a garden and other people are living in flats with 3 or 4 or 5 children. And so we raise the issues from the people. You have to do more about the public space. It has to be flexible. You have to have more public space where we can go on without paying money for it, for instance, sitting in a restroom. And so at the moment, we are trying to developing the public spaces new.
That's great. You know, Mayor Belmonte, I noted on, as we think about increasing civic engagement and participation here, I'm curious to know how this works in your country. And I saw on your website you speak to the need to empower citizens of every gender and social class as a priority for you. So what are some of the tools that you use to carry out this work? And do you all have departments such as Christians to carry that out? How does that work carried out in Quezon City?
Well, listening to Christian now, we do have a unit, or it's an office in my office, under the Office of the Mayor. It's called the Sustainable Development Goals Unit. And so it's not that different from Christian's objectives, which is to ensure that the SDGs are reached by the time they are supposed to at 2030, right? And just like Germany, we are fighting for climate justice, and in my case, gender equality, because I am a gender rights advocate. And under my administration, we had the biggest Pride March just last January 25, wherein we had LGBTQIA plus and allies in our biggest park enjoying themselves and receiving an acceptance that they have never felt before. No? And prior to that, when I was the vice mayor, we had also been the first city to pass the very first SOGI equality bill in the country, which has now been copied by about 25 other local government units in the country. And we're proud about this accomplishment because the national government has at this moment not yet passed a SOGI equality bill. So I see the future being in local government units, and not just any LGUs, but LGUs that are not afraid to go against the grain, LGUs that are willing to be progressive, and LGUs that are willing to embrace all the members of their communities.
No, that's great. Well, certainly, one area of civic engagement and participation that we all have a challenge with here in our region is the act of actual voting. And particularly here in Los Angeles at the municipal level. And, I saw, in 2016, the U.S. ranked number 30 out of 35 OECD countries in terms of voter participation. That was at the presidential level. 2020 was a little bit higher, but it's still fairly middling compared to that. And I think I mentioned to you in our little pre-conversation, we just had, elections across the state of California, and, barely 33% showed up. So I'm just wondering, in terms of civic engagement and participation, how does voter participation manifest in your country? Voter turnout high, voter turnout low? What does the city or the national government do to engage folks in the act of voting? Mayor?
In the Philippines, especially in the last elections last May, our voter turnout was very high, over 80%. And this was a presidential election. But then the way it is in the Philippines is, they're not that often. Elections are not that often. I understand here they're much more often.
Every year there's something.
There's something. So
maybe that's the problem.
That's probably the problem. We were talking about it earlier in one of the meetings that we had with one of the mayors. But in the Philippines, it's just the main election with the president and all of us, the congressmen, mayors, etc., all in one ballot. And then there's some mid-year elections when the president is not elected, but the rest of us are elected because we have up to 3 terms of 3 years each to be able to run. So usually voter turnouts when it is a presidential election are quite high. But then when it is not a presidential election, it's still quite high because people are really concerned about the leaders that lead them. And we, especially in Quezon City, we are directly linked up with our people. They see us, they are with us, they talk to us, we visit them. So we have a very direct engagement with the people. So it matters to them who are elected leaders in our city.
What's the population of Quezon City?
Quezon City has about 3.1 million people.
Okay.
And, of course, the majority of them are young because we are a very young city. But then in the last election, we had way more than 1 million voters turning up, which is very high already.
That's great. Christian, how do these show up in Mannheim or in Germany overall?
At the moment, last year we had the national government election. We had 72% in Mannheim. We had from the federal state election the year before 67%. And a local election, then it goes down to 50%. So that's not bad, but we could do better. And how we try to get the people to the voting ballot, that's a little bit tricky. The government is allowed to advertise for the voting. But as we all know, there are some milieus or some suburbs which are under the average of voting. And so you're not allowed, for instance, to make especially advertisement in the migration milieus or whatever, because somebody could go to the court and say he wants to have a re-election because the government with his advertisement has raised too much voters for this or that party. So it's a little bit tricky, but we try it.
Yeah. No, those are still, pretty strong numbers compared to what we see here in the United States, and particularly here in California, the most populous state in the country. As you work to build, civic knowledge and engagement in civil society, who are some of the key collaborators? In Mannheim, you've got a city department that's focusing on democracy and strategy. Who are some of the key collaborators and partners in building civil society? I know, Mayor Belmonte, you speak of strengthening participation by involving many sectoral organizations, civil society groups, and other stakeholders. How are you bringing these folks along?
We work with everybody from national government agencies to the private sector or the business sector, as well as all the other different sectors that are present in our city. And I mentioned that we have a Quezon City People's Council, and there are about 24 sectors represented there.
Oh, wow.
And we're talking about the urban poor, homeowners associations, and gated subdivisions. We're talking about professional organizations. We're talking about solo parents, women, urban farmers. Every single sector is represented there, the academe, religious, etc. And the goal is to bring all the stakeholders together to be part of nation building in our city, to make them participate in all aspects of life that are significant to them, and to make them, to empower them to make decisions for themselves, and to create programs that will benefit them the most, so that when we allocate funds, the funds that we allocate will be to programs that have the highest impact to these different sectors.
And Christian, how do you all go about engaging various stakeholder groups in the work that you're trying to do in Mannheim?
We try, for instance, with so-called cultural agents to go into the migration milieus to informate them why it's worthwhile to vote, and that they can decide over the development of their city, which they are also living in. Then we have youth programs where we are in districts, not say playing democracy, but we are having participation processes for the youth. First of all, for instance, for creating a skater space or other things, but also in discussing and saying, okay, what's the worth of it if we discuss things and not bashing each other? That seems to be, on the one hand, very simple. On the other hand, we have to learn democracy again, in my opinion, because at the moment it's more about dividing society, about struggling, about yelling and convincing people, not about discussing and saying, aha, that's a good argument.
Now, that's great. So given what you're already doing in your respective countries and regions, and participating in this program, where were you hoping to get out of this program? What are you hoping to take away from this program? But I'm also curious to know, what are your observations of how the U.S. and how these jurisdictions are dealing with these subjects?
Well, in the Philippines, basically, we have a unitary government. So everything is basically the same in terms of structures of government. Here, I know that it's federal. And it is actually quite enlightening for me to be able to go to different states and then see that there are different structures of government all working in different fashions, but towards the same end, which is to promote democracy and to bring people together. So it is enlightening for me as a leader, because I do believe that leadership means always wanting to learn new things.
Absolutely.
And admitting that you know nothing, really. So every time these study trips come along, I take advantage of the new learning opportunities that I can bring back home with me, and hopefully I can apply them to our local setting, and we can improve the way we deliver services to our people and engage them in their civic duties.
So what have you learned here on the LA leg of your trip thus far?
Well, we've only been here for a day and a half. Not even a day, actually, half a day.
Yeah, okay.
So we met with the mayor of Culver earlier today, and he was very inspiring. Actually, he was doing a lot of great things. And the second group we worked with is a nonprofit organization promoting dialogue. And I was really inspired by that, because they say now is a time where there's so much divisiveness and polarization. And the answer to that, and I always believe, is just for us to be able to understand one another, to be open to one another, and to agree to disagree about certain things. But that doesn't mean that we should be personal enemies.
Right.
And actually, democracy is about disagreeing and yet living together, despite the fact that there are many things that make us different.
Excellent. Christian, what are some of the things you hope to take away from this program when you go back to Germany? But also curious to know, what are your observations about the U.S. in these subject areas as you've traveled on this program?
Let me begin first with the observations. First of all, is to understand that you have here a different system. which is not so easy at the first glance, because a lot of things which are here done by NGOs are done in Germany by the state. So you have to understand the system, and both systems have developed during several years. They have traditions, and usually it's the best solution for this special situation and the country. And what I bring with me, I think we can learn a lot of things about civil engagement. What I hope, and at the moment I see it, we discuss it also in the morning, there are new networks also with helping each other. For instance, we had a discussion with the vice mayor from a city in Kosovo, how we can support them, for instance, during programs from the European Union and others, then finding new partnerships, understanding each other, having a knowledge exchange, and also in the theme of democracy, it's at the moment we have to say it's a fighting together for democracy, and really for saving this democracy, because usually at the moment in all nation states you see that the people are very aggressive. The populism is reigning. It's the simple solution to different problems, and it's not a discussion. It's more I come to and I want to convince you. Or as I saw, what struggled me when some of American friends here were telling us that there is a division or a divide going through families, so that sisters and brothers, I wouldn't say are not talking to each other, but they only come together once a year, and then they say, okay, no politics, and this is a big issue. And so we have to be careful about it, that, for instance, in Germany, it's not the same.
Right. No, that's absolutely correct. And I think one point you mentioned about, a lot of work that's done by NGOs or nonprofits here are things that are done by the state. And it's interesting because many of our episode guests are nonprofit leaders. And it is interesting that, in fact, a lot of these leaders started those organizations or carry out that work because that activity was not being done as effectively by the government. So that's why they exist. So that's great. So, given, these challenges that we're all facing in terms of divisiveness, et cetera, and certainly for many years we were talking about globalization, this interconnected world, and that's all starting to fray. What are your thoughts on the future of building global community and building a more supportive, cooperative, international network of relationships? Mayor?
Well, this kind of exchange, the IVLP, is very, very helpful because, in our group of 8, these are 8 very diverse individuals. We have people from Mozambique, Kosovo, Slovakia, Germany, Indonesia. I mean, in any other context, we would not be together. Yeah. And IVLP has brought us together, and 2 weeks together has given us the opportunity to get to know each other, our cultures, and then we realized we're so much similar to one another. Our countries have the same kinds of problems, and we gain so much from exchanging our ideas with one another. So I feel that this kind of exchange is a very helpful way for us to be able to foster acceptance and tolerance and to respect one another. And I think that that is the most important thing to be able to build a global community. It's respect and understanding. And I feel that things like this really work.
Yeah. That's the hard but necessary work of building communities. So we applaud IVCLA for what they do. Christian, what are your thoughts on the future of global community, and how can we go about building more supportive, cooperative international relationships and structures?
Yeah, and the globalization, as we saw it in the last 20 years, was a globalization of money, of goods, also of ideas. But I think what was underrepresented was the globalization of sharing how we are practicing democracy in our countries, and sharing these points of view, and also how we struggle in Germany or other way, and how others do these things is for us very worthwhile. And without an IVLP program, I wouldn't sit here. So this program is very important for this exchange and for fostering democracy and building new partnerships, really for creating also new participation projects and fostering a trust into government again, so that we see, okay, democracy, it's the best for the people.
Well, I think Mayor Belmonte's website speaks to the whole notion of working to foster trust in government. What would you say is the level of trust in government in your respective cities or countries? Mayor Belmonte?
I think one of the greatest problems we have is that people do not have that much trust in government. And that's why when I ran for public office, especially for mayor in 2019, I really ran on a platform of good governance. And this was because what I wanted to do was to be able to win back the trust of the people in government, because it's only when the people trust the government that they are willing to work with the government. And prior to that, people have been very cynical about government. They've always, when they equate government with corruption, they equate government with illegal activities like illegal gambling and drugs and all these things. And you can't blame them, because that's what they see in TV as well. And it's perpetuated in social media. So what we really wanted to do was to try to be sincere about winning back this trust by creating a reform program, which is what we did, in order to show that we can eliminate corruption, that we can run the government more efficiently, effectively, that the money of the people goes back to the people in terms of services rapidly, responsively, and slowly but surely, I think we have been achieving this, because our trust rating has gone up considerably.
Okay. How do you monitor that? How do you monitor that?
By surveys. There are surveys done by independent companies, so these are not self-serving. There are actually independent survey groups that monitor trust ratings of the different local government units, and Quezon City has slowly been going up in terms of its trust rating.
That's great. Christian, how would you describe the level of trust in government, whether it's in Mannheim or the federally?
Due to the numbers, I know it, so I don't have to describe it. No, our last opinion poll, also done by a survey, independent survey, was 53% trust into the administration and into the city councillors. Before COVID, it was 62%. Wow. So we have to do something about this, and we try always to be transparent, to involve the people. And we have at the moment about 60 participation processes per year, but we are not only looking for the quantity, also for the quality, and then learn from it. We also try to do new things. For instance, in the next year, with money from the federal government, we try to establish a so-called future lab, where we want to make visualizations for the people, that they are better understanding what the city is doing. Because we are transforming our whole cities, and the easy answers are almost in a negative way, and we want to show them that what we are doing is a positive way. So we have to create a positive narrative, but also we have to make some things easier to understand, to be connectable to the people. And this is via a visualization, online participation, and all the things.
Janet, I've only been in Los Angeles 18 years now, going on 19. I think you've been here a lot longer. Have we ever been surveyed by our state or local government?
No, I as far as our trust of the government, I've never participated in such a survey.
Okay, maybe that's something maybe that's a takeaway that we can share with our local government in terms of something that can build better trust here. So this has been great. Really appreciate this dialogue this afternoon. We normally would conclude with our lightning round, where we love hearing getting to know our guests through the lens of their Los Angeles and some of their favorite things about our region. But since you've only been here about a half a day, since you've only been here a half a day, we're gonna flip the script a little bit, and we're gonna do a lightning round. But we're gonna ask our guests to share with us some of the favorite things about your respective region. Now, I'm sitting here in middle of July and watching friends on Facebook who are vacationing in Turkey, they're in Italy. So the Angelinos do travel. So when they're in Quezon City, Philippines, or Mannheim, Germany, we're gonna ask you some of the favorite places for our Angelinos to visit when they come to your respective region. Are you ready with that?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so give us a favorite restaurant or two.
Well, they don't even have to come to the Philippines. They can just go to Daly City here in Los Angeles.
Exactly.
And I will price out Jollibee.
Jollibee, but Mayor Belmonte, we're in Southern California, and we just don't talk about those Northern Californians at all here. Daly City of San Francisco, they don't exist, So we don't. So we don't want to create any international incidences on this program, But Northern California.
But I think there is a Jollibee here as well in Los Angeles, and I know that there are many Filipino restaurants here in Los Angeles. So I don't want to talk about a restaurant back home, but I just want to say that there are. Filipinos are one of the biggest ethnic groups in Los Angeles, in California, and they have managed to set up their own restaurants to perpetuate our culture here, to fuse our culture with American culture. And I would suggest that the Los Angelinos can visit one of our local Filipino restaurants here.
And I want to say, Janet, you can correct me, but I want to say that the LA region has the largest diaspora of Filipinos of any city in the U.S., for sure.
I can't confirm that, but I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
Excellent. Christian, give me a favorite restaurant or two. Mannheim.
I can give you a favorite ice shop. I was yesterday, the Salt and Straw. I enjoyed it very much. So yeah, it was really great.
I love it. I was just there Saturday night, so I like that you're giving me some of my own LA favorites. That's great.
That's great. Yeah, and if you're in Mannheim, I can recommend the Kitchen. It's handmade food, traditional food, but also fusion, very fresh, and a lot of hipster there, as always, but also vegetarian food, and you have a nice view over the city, so I highly can recommend this.
Excellent. We always like to hydrate, so give us a favorite place to take a sip. That's either tea or coffee or a cocktail or a glass of wine. Mayor.
Dwayne, it's not where, it's what, so have a San Miguel beer.
Okay. San Miguel beer. Got it. Christian.
Take a gimlet at the Uncle Otto bar in Mannheim.
Okay, I like that. Give us a favorite place to take a visitor.
Boracay Island, just recently cited by Time Magazine as one of the top 10 destinations for tourists.
Repeat that again, please.
Boracay
Island. Okay, excellent. Christian?
Yeah, it's hard to translate. In German, it's called Strandbad. In English, it was a beach bath, but there is no official bath anymore. It's in a forest, in a natural forest, and you're sitting at the River Rhine, and it's very easy living and cozy. You have pizza, you have a lot of families there, and then you're staring into the sun when it's going down, and it's... That's relaxing.
That sounds nice. I'm ready for a vacation. We love the fact that as we navigate the pandemic, community events are happening again. You mentioned, the wonderful, Pride Festival that you had in Quezon City. Give us a favorite community activity or event in your respective communities. Start with Christian.
Yeah, I would also say the Pride Day in Mannheim, because all the people are coming together. All milieux, and it's so a positive atmosphere, and we should have more from this positive atmosphere.
Yeah.
Well,
Mayor?
Mine is always going to be Pride last June 25, specifically because that was, I think, our biggest Pride. But I would also like to cite an event that was very meaningful to me. As you know, the Philippines is a very Catholic country, and civil unions between LGBTQIA+ is forbidden. But one thing that I did do was do a commitment ceremony, because I wanted to show that LGBTQIA+ love is real love. And while it's not legally binding, we had 250 couples proclaim their love for one another in vows that they themselves wrote in this one very solemn event that I sponsored. And it was for me, it was one of the most touching and bravest thing I've ever done as a leader in Quezon City.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, this dialogue has been great, and we appreciate your time. Welcome again to Los Angeles. We hope you'll come back and see us again. We appreciate your service to your communities, but also to this concept of global community and the work that you're doing, the work that Janet's doing to build these cross-cultural relationships for our region. So, Janet, thank you for bringing this episode to our attention and bringing this to life. We appreciate it. As we say on Civitas LA, the guests get the last word. Any concluding thoughts that you want to share? Any calls to action you'd like to share with our audience? Let's start with the Honorable Mayor.
Well, first, just gratitude. Thank you very much to the American people for welcoming me here. And I'm very privileged to be part of this program. And I just want to say, no matter what people say about polarization, about divisiveness, there is always hope for as long as we are willing to get together, forget the differences amongst us, and respect, accept, respect diversity, and of course, equality are important. So inclusivity as well. So for me, those are my main ingredients of building a community, and we will continue to do that here in LA as we are trudging on for the next 3 days. And of course, as we get back to the Philippines, we will bring back those lessons to our respective communities.
Wonderful. Thank you. Christian, any final thoughts or calls to action?
Yeah, final thoughts. First of all, also thank you, Dwayne, for inviting me to this podcast, and also IVLP for inviting us to this country. And final votes. I would say after the discussions also in the last days, for me, there's more hope than it was before I arrived here, really. Talking to people with a mindset to saying, okay, we have to create a diverse community in living together in respect and achieving more together, and really living democracy and respecting other point of views. Discussing it, but not try always to bash the people for another point of view. And so there's hope, and with these new partnerships, I hope we can spread the message to the global level.
Wonderful. Janet, final thoughts, any concluding thoughts, calls to action?
Well, anytime that I get an opportunity like this to listen to our esteemed visitors speak about the work they do and the things they've gotten out of the program, it just makes me realize how lucky I am to be involved with the international visitors. And so thank you both, and thank you, Dwayne, for putting this together, because it has given me hope too, and I think we need hope right now, lots
Absolutely.
of it.
You know, this is great. Mayor Belmonte, Christian, Janet, thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate all the work that you're doing, and we hope that this podcast can be a tool for strengthening our understanding of your regions and building strong relations for our community here in Los Angeles. And as we like to say to our audience, thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this exciting program, and we hope you'll join us in 2 weeks as we look forward to yet another great civic conversation as we move into the third year of Civitas LA. So until we meet again, stay strong, get involved. To learn more about Civitas LA and share feedback on this program, or if you have a recommendation about future programs, please visit our website at www.civitasla.com and connect with us on Facebook at Civitas LA, Instagram at Civitas_LA, and Twitter at Civitas_LA.